and that just opened the floodgates for me in regards to. And again, like I told people, I said before, like if those hitters didn't believe that I made them better, my career would be over.
That's the point I'm going to get to.
Yeah.
Are we ready? So she does a really cool intro to this. So I'm basically I haven't done this in 2 years. So I'm just going to basically say I'm sitting here with Matt.
Record kind of like how you always did your part, and then I'll clean it up when I edit.
My like full on intro? I don't even remember. It's been so long.
No, just do like, hey,
Yeah. I'm just going to get it going. The first 2 minutes is always sucks anyway. So you good over there? I know, is it working? This is we just
$1,600.
yeah. Don't remind me how much it costs.
Yeah.
Happiness. My happiness is what it costs.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, we're recording.
Cool. All right. So welcome to the Kill Shot Podcast. This is Ben Jenkins, founder, owner, and design director of Warstic. I'm sitting here today with someone who I don't think needs a massive introduction when it comes to especially social media, where this will be seen. His name is Coach Matt Lisle. Welcome, Matt.
Thanks, Ben. Appreciate it.
Thanks for sitting down with me a few extra minutes. So why we're together is we're able to do a Warstic University Battle Hall thing called the Hitcraft Series, and you were actually our first speaker ever. So thanks for coming and doing that. So we thought we would kind of do an extended chatter here, basically, right?
Awesome.
And then we'll get you back to the West Coast. All right. So what we're going to try to talk to you about in this podcast is not trying to dive into the theories of hitting that you do or do not have so much, because one, it's well documented. That's what you do for a living. You're doing that every day. And your thing, the Hitting Vault, is a complete catalog of you trying to help people hit better, right?
Yep.
So no reason to go over that in detail. But I wanted to touch upon some of the things that I listened to myself today that I really liked and I think are interesting. And the thing that keeps coming back to my mind is you had a slide very early on that said there's no absolutes in hitting. And I was really, honestly, kind of delighted to see that from we'll talk about whether the word guru is a good or bad term to you, hitting guru, but we'll just use it for right now. I was glad to see a hitting guru say there's no absolute one way to do things. To me, that gave me license to go, I'll listen to everything this guy has to say, because that attitude and that mentality tells me he understands that. Whether it's true or not, I believe it is. So it gave me license to have an open mind about it. So just talk about, first of all, maybe why is it that there's no absolutes when it comes to hitting?
Well, it was really rooted in experience. Just I had noticed that as I became a hitting coach and trying to help hitters that, I taught a cookie cutter way, and that everyone has to do this. And I realized that some of the hitters that I worked with were not getting better.
You said that it's interesting. You said at first you did that.
Yes.
You had a cookie cutter way of hitting. Okay, that's interesting.
And so for me, like, as a young coach trying to learn about hitting and learning as much as I could, I developed a philosophy, and it's so much different than it is now. But at the time, I thought, okay, here's a philosophy, and I'm going to have every hitter do this.
Sure.
And I realized some hitters did well with it and others didn't.
Sure.
And so just rooted in the experience of all the years, I realized, one way doesn't fit everybody. Cookie cutter system doesn't work for everybody. And then the more you study hitters at every level, major league hitters, everybody does everything a little bit differently. In that, I do believe that every hitter has the most efficient and best swing for them, but it's not. It doesn't fit a mold that this is the best way. That the way that Mike Trout swings it is the only way to swing, or the way that Ohtani swings it is the only way. And that everyone has some characteristics that are unique to them.
Right. So, and then you pointed out on the flip side of that, you did point out. I think there was a screen that had a lot of frames, I don't know, maybe it was 20 guys, of all their exact point in it wasn't their swing, it was maybe like just after load before they launch position. Yeah. I don't know my terms. Launch position. And as a person who studies hitting, which I think is the key, you've had success probably because you have been in a smaller group of people that actually said, hey, I didn't play in the major leagues. I didn't hit in the major leagues, but I'm going to take the time to study hitting. You found these commonalities between great hitters that you can't deny. It's almost like a scientific process of like, hey, these are just truths that I see. I'm not saying you have to do this to hit good. If you can hit 300, hit 300 standing on your head.
Yep.
But I see these. So you're, as an instructor, bringing these truths to the table and making sure that kids and parents are aware of those things.
Yeah, and I just think there are certain things that most hitters do really well. Again, like we talked about, being on time is kind of a thing that everyone has to be able to be on time.
Yeah.
And then I think there's other things, and we don't have to get into that today, but, from creating space and maintaining posture and direction, how hitters create force. I think there are a handful of things like getting to a good launch position that most hitters all do very similarly.
You're saying you can break, what I liked, you broke down hitting into kind of 6 buckets of the aspects of the parts of the swing as it happens. And the reality is you can study and then try to improve each of those things for yourself as much or little as you want.
Yep.
And breaking it down is always a great way to learn things. But at the same time, you are saying within those buckets, it's like, I guess the trick is being open to, if someone comes up with a new way to do this bucket, cool. But again, I study all this stuff, and it's like I can't. There's this variation between hitters because they're all sizes, they're all different athletic abilities, their hand-eye coordination is all. Some guys are just off the charts and can do crazy things, like a Josh Donaldson. Some guys keep it really simple and kill it that way. So it's like you're trying to keep people within the parameters of what you've seen that is proven to have been done to create success. But there's no one right way to do any of those things. Yep. And it's a different combination. Hey, this hitter does bucket number 6 this way, but hey, number 2, he does different than this guy. He does totally different.
Yep.
And there's all the combinations make all the different hitting styles.
And I think what happens is a lot of times is as hitting coaches or coaches in general, we identify the strengths of the hitter, and then we want to spend all of the time cleaning up the deficiencies. And so now, instead of realizing, hey, this hitter got to this level or has these strengths for this reason, so let's not forget that this person does this bucket really, really well. Yeah. And so we want to, add skills that complement that, but it's not, I think a lot of times as coaches, we get caught up into, okay, here's the 5 deficiencies, and we're going to spend all of our time doing that, and not realizing that the hitter's strengths are the strengths for a reason. Let's bolster those strengths, and then just add some of those other skills to it.
Yeah. Maybe I use the term complete hitter too loosely, as if it's, because I think of our guy. Well, I say our guy, I would love Miggy, but no one really argues that he's not one of the best hitters of all time, and especially in our generation. But what I think is so impressive about Miggy is if he wanted to go up there and hit 50 home runs, he probably could. Mm-hmm. But I see Miggy all the time go, hey, runner on third base, gonna get a new RBI for myself. I can shoot a ball through the 4-hole in a second, and he does it. And guess what? He scored a run, and I did like that your slide. I'm one of my personal stances is I just want to see kids want to win more and do the thing at that time, the place. And I think a warrior is he's going to think of what the other guys need before himself. Yep. But I like that to me, Miggy's a complete hitter because he can hit for power, but he will absolutely shoot a ball through the 4-hole. He'll take a walk. He'll do all these things. But in your mind, I think that there's the idea of a complete hitter maybe means, it doesn't necessarily mean hit for power and contact. It means develop all the ability you can as best you can. Yep. Is kind of your point, I guess.
Yeah, and I talked about a little bit earlier in our clinics this morning. My hitting philosophy is do damage and get on base, but the get on base piece is a huge piece of that. They're understanding that the best hitters in baseball, they find ways to get on base. So it's not just a hitting philosophy; it's an offensive philosophy. Whether it's learning how to drag bunt, push bunt, wear pitches, all of the things to help your team win. Yeah. A complete hitter is someone who finds ways to win that at bat.
Okay, I like that definition a lot.
And so for me, I like to do damage piece of it, but if you can't do the other piece and you can only do damage, you're not a great hitter. You're a good swinger.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. So I know the big general debate in baseball the last, let's say, I don't know, it feels like 5-6 years. I don't know. Maybe it's been longer at this point, but kind of the whole debate about. Launch angle always comes up in the conversation, but kind of this idea that the game's getting boring because all we see are guys throwing 100 miles an hour and strikeouts. And I do have the personal opinion, if that's the case, it is boring. The ball, to me, the ball not being in play less and less does make it boring. If I want to go watch home run derby, I just go watch a home run derby. But I don't because you know what? It's boring. Yep. Once I've seen Josh Hamilton hit 25 over the fence, the 30-second one is not interesting. I do have a personal belief that things that are not somewhat rare are not exciting. Yep. These days, a triple is very rare. It's freaking exciting. So, as a hitting guru, and we will let you define your term. I'm just using it for fun. I think a guru is a person that studies things, so I count you as a guru. Whether it helps anybody or not is the question, and we're going to talk about that too, because I know that's a lightning rod topic. But like, what is your thought on the state of the game and where it's going, is it coming back a little bit more to like, let's diversify more, or is it going more in the direction more and more of throw 100, hit it as far as you can, that's all we value, and baseball, is baseball going to be hurt by that?
Yeah.
Or not? I mean, totally your opinion, no right or wrong.
My opinion is the game is really hurting right now.
Yeah.
I think I always view the game from a generational standpoint, and I just think that in 2021, with kids having options to play so many other sports, UFC, and all the things out there, that baseball is not very fun to watch. And I think for our generation, older generations, we can sit through a 4-hour game, and we enjoy the chess pieces of it for the most part. But I think for the younger game right now, like you're talking about the ball not being in play, it's just not a very fun game to watch. And so I think that has to change a little bit. The issue that I think we have is that the power game and the analytics that came into play with that is that, honestly, it has to do with money and free agency, in my opinion. And I think when players realize that, hey, if I put the ball in the air more, I hit for more power, more home runs, I can get paid more money. And I think that shift from winning ball games, putting the ball in play, some of the things that we take for granted, and I think in the game before. But if I'm a player who all of a sudden I've got some more launch angle, I put the ball in the air, and all of a sudden I go from 5 home runs to 25 home runs, and I went from $1 million a year to $15 million a year, and the industry itself looks around and says, hey, everybody, if you do this, you're going to get paid. I think a lot of players got on board for that, and I think so. I think that's part of the issue that we're facing. I think the analytics also tell us that run production wise, like the power doesn't, and you'll see guys realize they don't hit away from the shift, because if they hit a home run here, there is, like, the analytics tell us that there's more runs produced there. But that's because right now the runs are produced because of that, because there's nobody on base, and we're not doing that, and we're not stealing bases, we're not hitting triples, and so Major League Baseball has to find a way to shift that, and hopefully that can happen soon. If not, I think it will always survive, but I don't think it can thrive in its current condition of strikeouts, walks, and home runs.
Yeah.
The product itself is just not a great product that way, and kids aren't enjoying it. And so hopefully we can get to a place where the value of putting the ball in play, the value of stolen bases, the value of triples can increase across the board from players, organizations, wins and losses. Yeah. And I think that happens, that will improve the game.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I hate when people just blame everything on our attention spans getting smaller and smaller, because I'm a long form guy. I love 3-hour movies. I like 6-hour podcasts. I like War and Peace books. I mean, I think a lot of the joy in life is really digging into the deep something, but I get that we're just being programmed more and more to not have that tolerance. Yep. And I think, when you've got the game getting slower and slower and kids' attention spans getting shorter and shorter, I hate to blame it on that, but it's a problem. And I'm seeing, as just a dad coach like anybody else, I mean, I'm losing kids to lacrosse. Nothing against lacrosse. I think it's super cool. But when you talk to a kid about it, that usually what they'll tell you is, well, there's just always something going on. It's always moving. In baseball, I'm standing there, and that's been the age-old thing with baseball, but now we're making that much worse. And I do think the people, I'm not allowed to say the word about what the league that does big league players, but I think there's super smart people that run that league. But I think sometimes they lose the forest through the trees when you don't think down the road about where's this going. Because I think my thing is pretty true. Like, if it's not rare, it's not fun. We get excited as humans when we see something that doesn't happen every day. And so if this game is the same thing over and over and over, where are we going here? And I'm like, the solution to that, though, just like everything else, is not simple. And I think your point is right about, like, everybody kind of emulates what big leaguers do. If I get it, no one would fault a guy like, hey, the guys that are hitting home runs are getting paid more. So it's a bigger is better. Everybody and just like everybody else, they're gonna do what their buddy does. I better hit with power. And I've told guys like Jake Mangum Mississippi State. I literally more hits in the SEC, history of the SEC than any one single player. Not a big guy. He's my size. He's 5'10", 180. And as soon as he got into pro ball, what do? Got to get bigger, got to get stronger. And I get it to a certain degree. But I told Jake, I go, man, like you go out there and win. Don't ever lose that, because if we lose that in the game and people don't have value for that, then I mean, maybe you shouldn't make it. But guess what? Baseball's not going to make it either. So I'm telling Jake, it's totally great to get stronger and worry about it and see if you can get a little bit more power and you have it. Don't do it at the expense of ruining what's good about your swing and your game. So I don't even know what we're talking about anymore. Now we're just ranting.
Yeah.
But
hitters, I mean, they shouldn't lose themselves.
They shouldn't lose themselves.
Yeah.
And yeah, I agree with you. They should, like you said, they should take what's good about their game and build it to mastery level. And then if there's things they can add to that, that's just gravy. You know what I mean? But like, I do think there's a predominant thinking on Instagram, especially with kids, that, home runs are super exciting and all that really matters. And it's just, to me, it's really boring. But like, how do you tell 9, 10-year-old kids on Instagram that that's not all there is to it? I don't know, But when I do think it's probably, we'll get into this topic, I think it's a little dangerous for someone like yourself who, if someone just surface level sees your content, they see the words do damage. They see you use the word launch angle. They assume, if they don't look into the entire catalog of what you're doing and listen to it from start to finish and get your whole perspective, oh, well, this guy is a proponent of launch angle and just hitting home runs. People simplify people on social media like that, and that's where it gets tough. So how do you deal with the good, the bad, and ugly of social media and the fact that you are labeled a guru?
Yep.
Whether you call yourself or not is a different story, but you are sharing knowledge. You're going to naturally, when you do that, have lovers and haters. So where are you at in 2021 doing this, 6, 7 years or longer? Yeah. I know you've seen the good and the bad and ugly of all that kind of stuff. Like, how do you deal with that? And how do you deal with it?
Yeah, so for us, when I talk about damage and launch angle, for us, that's the language that I like to use and try to communicate. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of times in the micro standpoint, or when I'm working with a hitter or a parent, a lot of that time is we're talking about barrels. I'm like, hey, your son or daughter will enjoy this game if they hit the ball on the barrel more. Yeah. And so at the end of the day, that's what the philosophy of do damage is. It doesn't, and I think the interpretation of it is because of social media. Like, it can be taken any way you want. It could be, he only likes home runs. Okay, well, that's your interpretation. But when I use the term do damage, I'm referring to the ball hitting the barrel and hopefully hard. And so I think for us, I can't control too much of what everybody thinks about that. And the same thing with launch angle. Like, I'm a huge nerd and math. And so for me, like, launch angle makes sense in the sense of, the launch angle of a line drive over the shortstop or second baseman is 10 to 14 degrees. Well, I use that term and I like it because it resonates with me. But if I'm working with a player or a coach or a parent, I might say hit a line drive in the 3-4 hole or hit a line drive over the second baseman's head. And I'm literally saying 10 to 14 degree launch angle. And so I'm saying the same.
It doesn't always just equate to 45 degree, 450 foot home run.
Yes. And
damage is not defined by just that one thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I just think for me as a parent, coach, dad, all the things that I'm trying to speak a language that resonates with me and with other parents and coaches the best that I can. And I just think it's difficult to try to appease everybody in the sense of terminology. And I think we just try to do the best we can to do that. And I think in social media, I think for me, it's been almost 10 years that I've been really trying to hit it hard with social media and sharing knowledge. And I've come across a lot of haters and blocked a lot of people. But I think that what I decided early on was that my focus was going to be on trying to help parents and hitters and coaches get better. And I think that social media in 2021, a lot of it gets into who is the smartest person in the room. I want to be all the gurus are arguing with each other. If you've followed me at all or noticed my brand, I don't ever engage with anybody negatively online because I just don't find the value in that. I think at the end of the day, the Hitting Vault and myself, I want to help parents, coaches, and hitters get better. And so anything that's not of that, I don't want to spend time on that.
Right. And it maybe comes down to putting your money where your mouth is, but like if someone pays for your service and they had a good experience and they feel like they got better of a hitter. I mean, if you worry about that and that keeps happening over and over, you stay in business. If no one gets helped and never feels like that, you go out of business. It really doesn't matter what the opinions are. And if you're doing that, the reality is you're going to get positive. It's more positive comments than negative comments. If you don't have any haters, you're probably not doing anything at all. You're being too safe in all regards, and you're not having any ideas that are new or trying to advance it. There's nothing wrong at all about trying to advance the thinking of anything.
Yep.
And that's progress and whatever it may be. So for instance, I'm trying to think where to go here. There's so many interesting ideas of where this could go. Man, I don't even know. Let's talk about, this is the part you're going to have to edit because I've completely blanked on where I was going to go.
You're at 20 minutes right now.
Yeah, let's try to get 10 more and shut her down. Trying to think.
I mean, you can intro into, how did it get going and like having not played professional baseball.
Oh, I knew. So that's why I was stuck. I knew there was something I wanted to talk. Okay, I got you. Okay, so kind of keeping in that track. You've been doing, I would say, it's just like any other business. Like you do this 2 years doesn't mean you're any good at it. If you get past 3, you're going to have to be actually pretty good at what you do and getting results for people to survive. Just like my business, we're 7, 8, 9 years into this, so I feel pretty good about what we do. You're 6, 7 years into this. You must be producing good results for enough people to keep this going. So, but I'm assuming that I've seen points of hate on social media be about, why would you listen to someone coach hitting, or it could be anything else. It could be tennis. It could be this and that. Why would you listen to someone about how to hit if they did not hit at the highest levels, and not only that, do it for a long period of time? I'm assuming that's when you get and have to answer for. I mean, how do you answer that, or do you not answer and go, well, I just rely on helping people, and if they're happy, they keep coming back.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Yeah, it's a combination of it. I think for me, when I first started getting into coaching baseball and wanting to learn more about hitting, I had never played professional baseball, played very little college baseball. And so for me, I fell in love with coaching, and then I fell in love with wanting to help players, and then I fell in love with hitting. So for me, I kind of started from scratch. I mean, I had, there were some gurus out there, some videos, and you have the experience.
Walt Riniak.
Yeah.
Who's that guy?
Yeah,
the old school, right?
Mike Epstein, and there's a couple different guys that were out there. But for me, I love learning. And I love research. And so for me, I just dug in and said, I'm going to learn everything I can possibly learn about hitting and then helping people, and just really went down this journey of just trying to learn as much as I could. And then at some point I realized that, for someone who had never played professional baseball and doesn't have any credibility to fall back on if I didn't have success.
Like you can't use it as the defense mechanism. Well, I'm teaching this, but hey, I hit 200 homers in the big leagues, so you can't tell me I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Right.
And so for me, when I started working with major league players and some higher level players, in order to get buy-in, I actually had to help them get better. And and if I didn't, I would have been out of business a long time ago. So for me, I knew that I had to study harder than anybody else. I had to learn more than anybody else. I had to be better at it than anybody else, because otherwise, like I said, I couldn't say, well, I hit this many home runs in the major leagues. I played this many years. I had zero credibility outside of just helping this person get better. And so for me, I really wanted to focus on, okay, how can I help these hitters get better? And eventually, throughout time, helping some hitters and them having success. If they didn't have success, then I would have been out of business, and I knew that. And so for me, I spent a lot of time trying to help them get better. And then from there, and just like anything else in business, is they told someone else, hey, you know what? I worked with Matt Lisle. He helped me get a lot better. I worked with Matt, and he helped me, and that spread along professional baseball, and I was able to really, catapult from there, and even with just professional organizations in general. I think for me, back in 2016, 17, I had met with a bunch of major league teams about possibly, and they literally said to my face, hey, we just can't hire an outside hitting person. You don't have that experience.
You're not from the bro club.
You're not in the circle.
Yeah.
And that was hard for me, and for me, kind of again motivated me to continue to work
because they
really
think
hard.
that the players won't listen to you.
Yeah, it was just, honestly, I think it was we don't think the coaches are going to listen to you.
Either one, yeah.
Yeah, and I think at the time,
because you're right. Most coaches on major league teams were players themselves, and it's kind of self-breeds the next one.
And I think for me, thanks to social media, like a majority of my followers are young professional baseball players, hitters, and they followed me for a few years, so they recognize me. So when I remember visiting the Diamondbacks in 2017-18 in the locker room at spring training, and they were kind of telling me, hey, we like you, but it's going to be difficult, and maybe in a year or two. When I walked into the clubhouse, I had 15 players say, hey, Coach Lisle, I love your stuff, and I was blown away.
Because they've been helped. You've had an effect on them.
Yeah, and so I was blown away that the players, I had some credibility with and buy-in because from other players, but from an organizational standpoint, some of the older coaches and players, and so for me, that has been the biggest challenge of this thing, and with professional baseball as well, has been most of the time the pushback and the hatred has come from retired former players. Even in organizations that I've worked with, a lot of the pushback has been like, you're a swing coach, you're not a hitting coach. Well, you never hit, so you're not a hitting coach. And for me, honestly,
a coach, the definition of a coach is, I don't know actually what it is, but it's someone that helps someone be better than they can on their own.
Yeah.
I think that's what came out of my mouth, but right. Like, hey, I'm naturally on my own. I'm this. What the point of the coach is that they've got me 10% better.
Yeah.
Through observation, through study, through learning, helping me learn new things or get rid of bad habits or whatever it may be. That's the point of a coach, right? Like, that's why coaching is hard. Yeah. It's like, it's easy to yell at people. It's hard to actually psychologically connect with that player and then get them to do the work to create the new habits to get better. That's why coaching's hard.
Yep. And I think what's funny is that I've been fortunate enough that, like you said, it's been difficult over the years to listen to the hatred and you say it's easy to have a tough skin and you're all these things, but it is difficult to hear negative
and not punch back
negative things and
engage in the conversation,
get emotional about it and I think I have been very fortunate. Like, for example, last week there were some comments really negative about me on Twitter and social media, and within 10 minutes, Mitch Haniger, all-star Seattle Mariners, he tweeted out, I would not be at the level of professional baseball if it wasn't for Coach Lisle. Yeah. And so for me, what I've been very fortunate enough is that I haven't had to fire back people because I've had players like Mitch who have stood up for me, and I have advocates who say, you know what, like, you can say all these things you want about Matt, but he actually has helped me.
I think that's a great point. I've experienced the same thing with Warstic on social media. Just like anybody else, we get love and hate, and Ian, me and Jack, you put us in a bar, we're going to get in a fight. It's just our nature. I've had to really, the people around me have to really watch me with the trolls on social media because I just want to punch back. That's just me. So what I realized and what calmed me down is Warstic fans who really understand what we're about, they're always going to jump in and say, hey, And if they're doing that for you, you don't need to say a word because it's proof it's in the pudding. We're having an effect on people. They understand what we're about. You don't. You're not taking the time to do it. And so, therefore, I think that's a great point that you can kind of, if you really are providing value out there, you have to trust that. Maybe it takes longer. It's a process, but you will have people defend you. So I'm going to switch to the topic, one more topic here, and then we'll kind of wrap up. But, like, you're such a positive person in your social media and just what you said. I may not get you to say anything here. But, like, are there... I don't care whether they call themselves hitting gurus or people teaching kids to hit. Like, I do see some crazy things, and it is like crazy drills, whatever it may be. Like, and absolutely no need here to point out any one person, anything. But, like, is there types of things that parents should be looking out for that really are? I guess it's this thing of, like, almost like trying to come up with so many. It reminds me of the old golf days when my dad would come home with a gadget that was connected to his head and then to his elbow and all these gimmicks and gadgets kind of stuff. And it's like there are people trying. I mean, I got to say about human nature, there's people trying to create gimmicks, gadgets that make them money because they make you better. And then probably some of the gadgets are pretty dang good. And then some of them are total crap. But, like, how prevalent do you think that really is? Or do you think there's not a contingent of people out there that are just, do you think there's a contingent out there of people that are trying to do it on purpose or not, really teaching kids bad things? This is a tough question.
Yeah, I think...
Because people admittedly might blame you for some of that too.
Yeah, I think generally that everyone is doing their best. Like they are trying to do their best, whether it's for themselves, their family, the people they're trying to sell or market to. I do think that most people have good enough intentions that are trying their best to do that. For me, my best advice for parents who are trying to, navigate the waters of all the gurus and all the products out there is that if you notice that guru is, always talking down to or demeaning other products or brands, to me, the best brands out there, regardless of baseball or softball, just in general, they don't talk badly about their competitors. They just do their best. They just make it so that their product is the best thing. And so for me, I've never talked negatively about other gurus or products out there because to me, it just doesn't bring value to other people in the sense of like, I'm going to focus on what I do best and try to be the best in this space. I don't focus on what other people are doing because I just don't think that is the best for that brand. Like I said, I don't think Coca-Cola and Pepsi. Sometimes you have some fun competitive stuff, but in general, to me, the brands that I like to follow, they're focusing on themselves. They're not focused on what other people are doing. And there's a meme out there one time about I have a picture of it of Michael Phelps swimming and he's winning the gold, and you can see like his competitor looking at him, and it's like these champions are focused on the goal and the competitors are focused on their competitors. And for me, that's how I have approached it all along, is that I really don't care what anybody does. I'm going to do the best I can do for what I'm doing and let the rest happen.
Yeah, I think you just told me. I mean, I've really enjoyed everything today. I've listened and I'm trying to be objective, but you just hit one of my favorite things of all time, which is my favorite quote. I never get the quote right, but Henry Ford, who did pretty good. One of his famous quotes is, basically the point of the quote is, I never waste any time thinking about competitors, right? And that's basically what you're saying is, I'm just going to focus on what I do, because all that time and energy you're focused on someone else, you're not making your craft better. And so, with Warstic or anything I do, that's a comforting thought, because I'm like, every time that I do something dumb in Warstic or make a dumb product that doesn't sell, it usually boils down to I looked too much at a competitor, I looked too much at trends and fads and all this thing that's going on, and I kind of freak out like, oh man, we got to have neon colors. I hate neon colors. I don't want neon colors. I hate it. So focus on what you're doing and your journey and your past. I think that was a really good point, that you're doing that is a really good sign. And then, like I said, you either create value for people or you won't, and go from there.
And I think something you'll resonate with Warstic or anything else, I think that listeners that may resonate with is that, like, the dreams that you have and the things that you want to accomplish, nobody understands those things. And so staying true to who you are and what you want to do, I think a lot of times we get caught up into what other people might think about this and might think about this project. I mean, again, I'm sure with Warstic, when you launched it, there were probably people who said, hey, maybe this is maybe not a good idea, or but maybe you should reconsider that. And I think if you had listened to those voices or people, then it wouldn't have turned into what it is. But I think for people who are listening, and if you have big dreams and big goals, along the way, the higher you go up, the more haters are going to come out, the more people are going to say that's not a good idea. And if you can block out that noise and hold on to, like, you know what, this is what I want to accomplish, and I'm going to do what it takes to do that. It's not focused on the competitors and everybody else, you have a lot better chance of achieving.
Yeah, in business, being original and being different is kind of the trick to business. I didn't build anything to be the second best, but not the biggest. But like at the end of the day, all I care about is like, I want to be original and different and contribute something to the world of baseball that it didn't have before. That at least would be fun, But I think we all handle the haters differently. Like I said, I'm as competitive as the next guy, but I don't know that I can just block them out, but what I learned to do is a little trick where I just put them in a soup and eat them. And I keep it internal. I'm like, this is just fuel and motivation inside. In my mind, do I think about some things people said to me 6-7 years ago? Yeah, I do. But I'm not going to waste my breath on it. But like I thank them in my mind. I'm like, yeah, you kind of fueled me. What you did is actually piss me off enough to make me get up the next morning a little earlier and figure out a better way. So I think that's at least the way I kind of deal with it.
Absolutely.
But like, it is what it is. So, well, man, this has been awesome. Again, the hard thing with someone like you is like I could then get into another subject and go on and on. But I think I want to thank you again for doing the Warstic University thing as the first guinea pig ever. It went really good considering we haven't worked out all the kinks yet. And so I want to have you back in like a year when it's super fluid and see if we can do it even better and like just see where you're at in a year and continue to keep learning, man. Because what I love about what you say is like you love learning. That's probably the best thing you can teach the kids that you're working with to learn to love learning. It's a hard thing to say. If you can do that and realize that the growth mindset is what matters. I'm very much did not have a growth mindset when I was a kid. Relied on my athletic ability. Therefore, I became a really good graphic designer because I didn't learn to be a better baseball player than I actually could have. So a lot of things with Warstic is making sure that we make sure that kids understand, man, it's not just your God-given. It's, dude, you could take it. You could take it further, but you have to put in. It's not just work. Always people say work. It's learning. Yep. It is really learning and studying, and then don't be afraid of information. If you're gravitating towards something, go do it. So I think you're really putting a lot of information out there and helping a lot of kids. So do you have any parting messages? I always do this to you in talks. I'm like, do you have any parting words of wisdom, Matt?
No, I would just say I really do appreciate you bringing me here and getting to kick off at the Warstic University. I had a lot of fun and I enjoyed just sitting down with you at this podcast and my time here with Warstic. I would just say I'm grateful for that, and I'm definitely very honored to be in that. I think for the biggest parting words that I would say to people again is if you're listening to this, hopefully it's because you have a growth mindset and you're wanting to learn and get better. And I think that the best advice I can give to people on this journey of life is to continue to learn, continue to grow, be okay with being wrong with where you are now. And 10 years from now, you might look back and say, you know what, I was completely wrong about that. And for me, a big part of my journey as a hitting coach has been able to say, you know what, 10 years ago, I taught this and it didn't help people. I had to adapt and I had to change. And I think in my experience in baseball, that's been very difficult for a lot of organizations, coaches, and players to do. They hold so tightly onto their philosophy or whatever the thing is, and they get passed up in the industry because they're not willing to adapt, learn, and change. And that change is really difficult for a lot of people. So be willing to change, be willing to adapt, be willing to learn. And if you can do that, open your heart and mind a little bit to that growth mindset, I think you'll really unlock a lot of potential in your own life.
Dang it, I knew you would come up with a point that I want to hit on. So we're going one extra inning. That's it. So I can't even remember. This is such an old school hitting guru, Walter Breniak?
Yep.
Remember, okay, so in my era, people remember Oklahoma State hitters doing this crazy, it was somehow connected to Robin Ventura maybe, because he played there. But like, if you really went and look at videos of that hitting approach, dude, it was a very specific one size fits all. This is how you hit crazy. It had a leg kick. I mean, I can't remember, but it had a style to it.
Yeah.
You could go, oh, that guy gets coached by this person. Yep. And so I'm not seeing that's survived a long time, because it turns out, not one way works for every player. Yep. I think that's kind of the point. Actually, for some players like Pete Incaviglia or Robin Ventura, it did. Yep. It really did. But like when you just try to apply a blanket solution to everybody, it does not work. Yep. So like I'm not seeing in what I saw with you today that that's what you're doing.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest challenges we're facing right now in the industry at the professional level, is that you have a lot of coaches who had a lot of success their way. Mm-hmm. They had some success coaching that way, and now in 2021, as the game has adapted, they've realized that maybe it did help a couple of those players, the Cavillas and the Venturas, but a lot of players, their potential, their skill, their talent was coached out of them, because they were forced to, do it a certain way. And I think nowadays we can probably list, a dozen players that at a college or at a high school were prospects, and they fizzled out because a coach got a hold of them and said, you have to do it this way. And that way did not help that hitter. And I think now in 2021, organizations are learning that, hey, you know what? We do need to have multiple approaches to this, and it can't be just cookie cutter.
But that thing you just said, doesn't that then make it really hard? When I talk to you and I believe that you have that perspective that not one solution fits every player because of all the different, they're bigger, smaller, different strengths, this and this. How do you create a hitting system like the Hitting Vault that accounts for that?
Yeah,
and that's like, I get it.
Yeah,
like,
totally. So
because you want to package that information, but that can also come off as this is the way that you hit, or this is the way you train.
So that's a lot of times we get a lot of feedback, like, why do you have 300 videos in the Hitting Vault? Why it seems overkill? And it's because we want to adapt to the journey of every hitter, and so the drills are. again, like we talked a little bit about, I do think there are 5 or 6 things that are somewhat absolutes of hitting and creating space, creating some separation, the kinetic chain, and there's some things that I think that most good hitters do a really good job of. And so the vault is designed around that. But having said that, a lot of the drills you could have, every different type of swing in the world, from leg kicks to barrel tips to all the things, and no stride, and have success. And so we filmed all of those drills, and we have multiple coaches in there because we want to be able to provide people something that they resonate with, that might be, you know what, I watched this drill, that drill doesn't really help me, but this one over here, addressing the same area of hitting, does help me. And so for us, and it's something that I learned as a hitting coach 7-8 years ago. And like today, we talked about creating separation, and we talked about shooting a bow and arrow, and we talked about throwing a punch. We find these terms or little analogies that help a hitter, and we've got to have multiple of those, because one term might resonate with you and not resonate with another player. And so we're continually trying to find terms and drills that fit the person better than trying to fit that person into the system.
I can understand the life of a hitting guru a little better after today, just thinking about, well, I can't just be stuck in time and never think of a new thing to do, but at the same time, new things come by trying things, and I might come up with a really stupid hitting drill.
Yep.
It may not help me in anything, but also the other perspective I have is that not every hitting drill it's not an absolute, that word you use, because not every hitting drill usually addresses one aspect of the swing, one part of the swing, not all of the swing.
Yep.
But when on social media, when we see this one little bit unorthodox drill, we think, oh, that's how he teaches people to hit. Well, no, that's one of 300 drills or 600 drills that I might have, and but you're probably a great catalog if I go, hey man, I got a kid that's just got whatever, this little thing he does, it's this little hitch, it's a bad habit. You're like, well, I have 3 drills that actually might address that one bad habit. Is it going to make him hit 450-foot home runs when he didn't before? No. But that's kind of the drills are tools. Yep. They're each tools, right? That kind of thing. So, well, I'm kind of fascinated. I think I'm going to become a hitting guru now and just go do it all over again. I'm not. Well, I appreciate the time. And again, it's so hard to stop talking to you. So I'm going to leave some meat on the bone for next time. So thanks again, Matt. We really appreciate the time.
Thanks, Ben. Appreciate it.
Awesome.